Supergirl has often been the outlier in the CW superhero multiverse, and not just because she literally lives in an alternate universe. The quality of Supergirl has often been much lower than the likes of Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow and Black Lightning. Though still entertaining, I've never found myself running home eager to turn on the TV to see Supergirl in another fistfight against an impossibly powerful alien. The show grew to become very repetitive, with Season 1 featuring Kara Zor-El defending the planet from an invasion of Kryptonians, Season 2 defending the planet from an invading army of Daxamites, and Season 3 featuring the Girl of Steel fighting off another invasion from evil Kryptonians. So how did they fix this? How does Season 4 stand out, not only among the other shows in the Arrowverse, but in all the shows currently being broadcast today? She is the invader. Though not intentionally, she and all the other refugees from other worlds, who for the past 4 years have been fleeing war and strife from their home planets, are seen as the invaders. And a militia has risen to take back the planet for the humans. What this season has so expertly executed is a thrilling and engaging story, while being a clear parallel to the xenophobia and hatred being expressed in places like America, New Zealand and the UK today. The story of the people of Earth seeing the alien refugees as a threat has been a slow burn, with bigots being the first wave of intolerance, infecting the minds of those who are more forward thinking, then turn them to their side as a means of claiming the Earth for humans only. Supergirl is facing off against something she's not prepared for. Instead of blowing up a world-ending satellite, defeating her brainwashed cousin in a brutal fistfight, or putting an end to an apocalyptic invasion from a hostile race of warrior aliens, she is now fighting the will of the people. The past 4 years have groomed her as a fighter, and as the Children of Liberty grow in numbers and power, she often sees the only course of action to be to fight back. But by doing so, she and the aliens she fights along with only manage to stir the pot and add to the hatreds of their kind. There are a lot of story arcs this season, some a progression of the character arcs from previous seasons, and some are brand new. So in order to fully explain how much of an improvement the season is, I'm going to discuss each character and their individual stories, one by one, to demonstrate how good this show has become. So let's start off with the main girl herself. Supergirl has always been an incredibly optimistic character, but as the season has progressed, her kind and innocent smile has steadily faded as she's become more and more closed off from people around her. The season begins with Kara doing her usual thing, saving the day, fighting the bad guy and being friendly to the community. But when the human militia called the Children of Liberty made themselves known in a series of attacks and public displays against visitors from other worlds, the domino effect it causes leaves her in a much more vulnerable position than we have ever seen her in. It starts off small, firstly with her relationship to her superiors becoming unstable. One of the first attacks we see the Children of Liberty perform is to out the President of the United States as an alien. This sends the country into an uproar as the leader of America should hail from America, and thus she willingly steps down and a human takes her place. At first he seems kind, friendly and eager to meet and work with Supergirl, but his influence in the DEO's activities and the restrictions he's put in place for Supergirl make it immoral for Supergirl to continue working with them, and so she quits in order to live her life as a superhero in her own way, and not be stopped by ridiculous restrictions which make her sit idly by as tortured and tormented aliens are left to suffer, or to take their own lives as a result of what the government have done to them. Steadily her relationship to her friends and family are stripped away from her. The government begin using every method possible to discover Supergirl's identity, which involves some extremely invasive tactics which have the entire agent base of the DEO become attached to a lobotomized mind-controlling alien, which makes it impossible for them to lie. And so in order for her identity to remain a safeguarded secret, all of the DEO agents, including her own sister, willingly have J'onn J'onzz, the Martian Manhunter, erase any memory they have of her true identity. The aftermath of this choice has a cataclysmic effect on Supergirl. She is now alone. She no longer has her sister to lean on when things get hard, because now her sister has no idea who she really is. All of their closest moments as sisters, which built such a strong bond, are now gone. And every time Kara speaks with Alex, we see the pain she's feeling by no longer being able to be open to the person she was once closest to. Episode by episode, we see Kara become angrier and angrier as she loses more and more people. But in that we see some astounding character growth. During a peaceful protest from alien refugees whose citizenship is at risk, she and the few allies she has left volunteer to patrol the protest against the possibility of an attack from either the Children of Liberty or the elite, who are led by Manchester Black. During a minor scuffle with the Children of Liberty, we get this exchange.
Most of them are fleeing war and violence, just like I did when I first came to Earth.
They're not like you. You're a superhero.
And this is where we see her finally understand that she is different from the other refugees. Because she routinely saves lives, she is given a free pass from the Children of Liberty. And after hearing those words, "You're different, you're a superhero," her anger fades. Instead, she realises the only way to put an end to the hatred and bigotry is to stop fighting the same way she always has. She dons herself in Kryptonian robes, hiding her costume as a means of being another one of the refugees. She tells everyone who she is.
It's Kara Zor-El, citizen of Earth.
Nice to have you with us.
She then proceeds to not give in to the taunts from those against refugees, and encourages the protest to remain peaceful. She has now stopped fighting as a warrior, and is fighting as a symbol, and by doing that she manages to do something she has failed to do all season, as a few members of the bigoted movement offer to help and aid aliens who are injured in an attack. Supergirl's character growth this season is remarkable. She is humbled and forced to learn a harsh lesson on her own. If she gives into her anger, she only widens the divide. But when she uses her position as a symbol of peace and hope as her weapon instead of her powers, then she is able to make more change in just a few minutes than she was able to make after months of fighting. Next, I want to talk about J'onn J'onzz, the Martian Manhunter. Last season, he was forced to do the hardest thing we've ever seen any of the characters do in this show. He had no other option than to kill his own father to prevent his broken mind from ending the world. This is particularly heartbreaking because he just found him again after thinking he died with the rest of his people over 300 years ago. His father was a highly respected religious figure and a man of peace, but due to an alien equivalent of Alzheimer's, his powerful psychic mind became a danger to everyone around him, and the more his mind died, the more dangerous he was. After killing him, J'onn chooses to remember the man his father was before his mind began to fade, and to adopt his stance of non-violence, and in this season we see him attempting to reconnect to his own faith and allow the Martian religion to not die with his father. In his attempts to abandon his violent ways, he seeks out other ways to help the aliens of Earth, and leads a support group in order for any alien to have a place to feel welcome and safe. When the Children of Liberty abduct several members from his group, he and the boyfriend of one of the group members, Manchester Black, goes in search of the men who kidnapped and killed the people who were there only seeking sanctuary. The struggles J'onn faces are severe. His anger almost overtakes him at several points, and his want to use violence is then further perpetuated by Manchester. But J'onn is strong-minded, and his love for the memory of his father is strong enough to pull him back and prevent him from falling back to his old ways. Manchester is the perfect adversary for J'onn this season. Though at this point in the show he doesn't have any powers, as opposed to his comic counterpart, his pure burning rage for vengeance is enough to combat J'onn's talks of peace. Manchester is a man of Earth, his partner however was from another world, and he truly loved her more than anything. She was one of the first victims of the Children of Liberty, and her death sent him into a murderous spiral. Seeing this, J'onn makes it his mission to save Manchester's soul by not letting him become a killer, whether it for vengeance or not. What spawns from this is a gripping cat and mouse game between the two, which drives Manchester to become as powerful as J'onn in order to push him back and force him to give in to his anger. The feud between the two becomes so intense that it led to the very first nerd out moment the show has ever given me. While pushing his psychic powers to their limit, he is unable to find any trace of Manchester, which leads to this beautiful few seconds where the Martian finally embraces the Manhunter.
Today I find you like a manhunter.
Returning to the peaceful protest, where Supergirl's character arc hit the point where she became a stronger symbol and hero, J'onn instead loses everything he's worked so hard to build. In the confrontation with Manchester, he breaks. He doesn't hold back, and with brutal force alone, he is able to overpower the technology Manchester has stolen, which makes him invulnerable to pain. He gave into his anger, and let Manchester Black turn him back into the warrior he no longer wants to be. The only upside to this being that the crazed madman out for vengeance is now incapable of hurting anyone ever again, or that would be the case if it wasn't a trick. In actual fact, Manchester had taken technology the aliens had used to blend in with humans and attached it to a Child of Liberty. He looked like Manchester, and Manchester himself was able to project his voice into J'onn's head, making him think he was actually fighting the man who he'd spent months trying to save. Instead, he brutally attacked a man of the xenophobic hate group, only succeeding in solidifying their fears. The small exchange between Manchester and J'onn afterwards adds so much more depth to their rivalry. J'onn was pushed to the edge and fell. He broke his stance of peace and returned to being a violent alien. In turn, Manchester has learned a lot from J'onn. He was able to step back and learn that in order to combat the alien who could literally kill him with little more than a thought, he needed to adapt and learn to fight him without actually fighting him. First was the desecration of J'onn's father's grave, to weaken his resolve and mental state. At that point he was able to implant his own thoughts into the Martian and trick him into hearing and seeing things that weren't actually there. And when he was speaking to J'onn after giving in to his anger, Manchester almost sounds calm. He won the fight. J'onn J'onzz, the Martian Manhunter, was unable to overpower him with brute force or combat him mentally as he had done to so many other threats throughout the years. Manchester wants J'onn to bring the fight to those who killed his beloved, and J'onn just wants to keep the memory of his father and people alive. If he gave into his anger, then he believes that he loses his last chance at keeping the memory of his people alive. But if he continues to pursue peace, then he knows that Manchester will not stop his killing spree. The choice that Jean is forced to make is either to remember those who are already gone, or to prevent more from dying. In the end, his choice is to choose who he is. Is he Jean Jones or the Martian Manhunter? Is he an alien from Mars, or a hero on Earth?
At least I will know who I am!
And who are you?
I'm the Martian Manhunter!
The next character I will discuss is Brainiac. Brainiac 5 is a character introduced to us last season, and his character in that season is rather hard to watch. He was a character with no depth and was overall rather boring to watch. The quirky side to his personality was far too overplayed and was overall a very annoying character. This season, however, they have reworked his character and made him one of the more compelling and humorous characters to watch. What the writers did this season to fix the character of Brainiac is they actually took a note from the Flash villain DeVoe. If you remember from season 4 of The Flash, DeVoe was an exceptionally smart character, arguably of a similar intellect to Brainiac if not more so. The downfall of having this intellect, however, meant his intelligence nullified his emotions to the point where he became an unfeeling, emotionless monster. The way that Brainiac works this season is very similar, only instead of being the villain, he is one of our main heroes. And his character arc this season is about connecting and understanding himself beyond his intellect. This is achieved in tandem with the new character introduced this season, Nia Na, or as she was soon to become known as, Dreamer. Even before this season began, this character was surrounded by a lot of controversy over her gender. There was an outrage from a portion of the fanbase on the announcement that they would introduce a character who used to be a man, but made the choice to become the gender they always wished they were born as. Apparently for a show featuring aliens that look like stretched out rotten zombies, with a jaw straight out the movie teeth, having a character choose to no longer have a penis is just one step too far. But the fact that she is trans is one of the season's strong suits in a long line of strong story arcs and character moments. Nia and Brainiac are the main source of romance this season, and the fact that it comes from a hyper-intelligent alien and a trans woman is very interesting. From the first encounter they have a clear connection, but Brainiac not completely understanding human behaviour, nor having a good connection with his own feelings, makes Nia's clear interest in him go unnoticed. Slowly but surely they do discover ways they can bond with one another, and in his own way, he is able to demonstrate his care for her time and time again. Throughout the season he grows more and more as a character, and for all the benefits it gives him, such as growing to become a better friend and connect more with Nia, it also has its disadvantages, namely the sorrow and pain he feels when his Legion ring is stolen. Brainiac's Legion ring is a very powerful piece of jewellery. By wearing it, the user gains the ability to fly, as well as a boost to their endurance and physical strength. With this ring, Brainiac has the advantage in almost every fight, but it also has more sentimental meaning to him, as it is the last thing that connects him to the friends he left behind last season. Losing this ring made him lose more than his physical powers. He also lost his last link to his old life, his old friends, his old identity. But in that is where his character is finally able to truly embrace his new life, his new friends, his new identity. Which brings us back to the familiar setting of the peaceful protest. Surprisingly enough, this episode tackles almost every main character story arc and follows through with them expertly. It is the episode where Supergirl doesn't give in to her anger, but Jean does give in to his anger. Where the Children of Liberty see someone who claims to be there to help them suddenly brutally attack them. And for Brainiac, it is where he's able to use his vast intellect to be the one who organised the protest. Being the one who organised the process to allow off-world life to maintain their citizenship has shown just how far his character has come from the obnoxious and annoying one we were introduced to last season. He saw the only path to secure the future of alien life on Earth, and this is something that he either wouldn't have noticed nor would have cared about had his character not sought out to better himself and understand others on an emotional level.
My parents believed that humans and aliens could coexist, and I am living proof of that. But growing up wasn't easy. I am also a trans woman. And I am proud of all that I am.
What does love feel like?
Next, I want to talk about the season's villain, Agent Liberty. But before I do, I really want to give an honourable mention to their version of Lex Luthor. He was introduced very late into the season, but he's been referenced constantly since season 1. We have seen his mother and we have seen his sister many times throughout the show, his sister Lena being one of our main morally ambiguous characters. But now, finally, the cunning super genius has graced our screens with his presence, and what a presence he has. His introduction scene alone sets him up as being a near perfect representation of the character from the comics. Having succeeded in turning the sun red, removing Superman of all his powers, and using nothing more than the watch on his wrist to commit mass murder of the police attempting to arrest him. I admittedly was a bit thrown off by his facial hair. I'd always had it in my mind that he was just bald all over. He did vow vengeance on Superman after he turned him bald after all. The show very clearly was not scared to take risks with the character either, like this scene in a courtroom which does not involve a plot about him peeing into a jar and giving it to the judge. I know it's crazy, a plot involving Lex Luthor which does not involve urination, but the show was brave enough to try it. At the time of writing this, the show isn't yet finished, but it looks like Lex is taking over as the main threat of the season. Given his introduction and every other scene he's been in, he has become one of my favourite iterations of the character, despite only being in 2 episodes at this point. And I wish I could talk more about this brilliant version of such an iconic character, but the villain who inspired me to make this video takes precedent. Agent Liberty is like no other villain of the Arrowverse. His tactics to discredit and shame those who are different to him or have a different belief structure to him is fascinating to watch. In just one attack, his followers were able to expose the US president as an alien, remove her from office, allow a bigoted man to take her place. This then snowballs into a disaster, putting sanctions on the DEO, torturing and performing experiments on aliens, and cutting ties with Supergirl entirely. His political warfare is very well written, and his methods for hunting and eliminating aliens are so barbaric. He and his followers have trained dogs to be able to identify off-world beings. They then walk them from street to street, painting secret messages on the homes belonging to aliens, so they can return with bigger numbers and eliminate the invader. But who is Agent Liberty? Agent Liberty is a man by the name of Benjamin Lockwood, a former university history professor who, after a string of unfortunate incidents involving off-worlders, grew a hatred for them and sought out to take back the planet for the human race. Early on in this season, we were treated to a fantastic episode revolving around the character's origins and how his bigotry was born. We get to see the events that have unfolded over the past 3 years from the perspective of an average human. We see him in fear of his family's life from invasion after invasion, and we see his hate grow more and more as aliens inadvertently make his life and the lives of his family more difficult. We see Lockwood at his earliest point in the show, nothing more than an average family man. He is cooking breakfast for his son while his father is watching the news and his wife is attending to household chores. It's the picture painting of a healthy family by 1950s standards, a romanticised point in our recent history where family life is blissful and life is easy. Slowly things begin to derail as his father voices his opinion on the alien asylum seekers with the usual MAGA mentality, that they are stealing their jobs and running humans out of business. But Lockwood himself tells him that the steel industry is dying, and there are endless opportunities for him if he transitions over from the steelwork into using the vastly superior nth metal his rivals are using. But his father is, quote, old-fashioned, and believes that Earth should use metals found on Earth. The influence of his father also has an effect on his son, as he refers to the aliens as roaches, a word used in a hateful way to say that they have infected the world and need extermination. Lockwood immediately puts a stop to it and tells his son to never use that word when talking about aliens ever again. A few months go by and there is an incident at his father's work, where he and his employees attack the workers at the nth metal factory. As Lockwood goes to pull his father away and not let him stoop to that level, the confrontation turns more violent, and the alien worker who was being attacked simply tries to defend himself, injuring Lockwood in the process. A few months pass and he's teaching in his class. His students consist of a mix of humans and aliens, all seemingly on equal grounds with one another. But at this point, Lockwood has lived through 2 worldwide invasions and has himself been inadvertently injured by an alien. His father has now passed away, and while he's still in grieving, he lashes out at a student who is trying to steer the conversation away from the allegory of off-world asylum seekers being invaders, during which the exchange he has with the student turns racist as he remarks about her alien appearance.
This isn't nativism, it's xenophobia.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised to hear that from someone with your complexion.
The aftermath of this has Lockwood being fired from his job, and as his bitterness grows, he founds the Children of Liberty and declares himself the Agent of Liberty. The thing that makes this villain so compelling is that we get to see his origin in an episode dedicated solely to him. We see him as a kind and open-minded man, and a respected professor at a university, a non-violent man who tries to steer his bigoted father into working with aliens. But he is beaten down and his worldview is proven wrong in his eyes. Event after event has forced him to see that all aliens are a threat. The fact that we get to see bigotry born and grow makes this character in season so compelling. We can sympathise with this man. He lost everything. His job, his good name, his father's family business. He has cowered in fear with his family against invaders, and even when he is trying to help them, he still is hurt. He isn't a one-note selfish bad guy. He has many reasons for his hatred and believes that what he is doing is right. And something else which makes him even more unique as a villain is the fact that he isn't a fighter. I wasn't lying when I said he's a non-violent person. Even as the leader of the Children of Liberty, he doesn't fight. His followers fight, kidnap, terrorise and even kill off-worlders, but he doesn't fight. When his identity is revealed to Manchester Black, he becomes his sole target, and even when Manchester threatens the lives of his wife and his son, Lockwood barely acts in a violent manner, attempting to talk his way around the situation. Nothing this man ever does when confronted shows him as a violent person, but his ability to manipulate and persuade people to his cause is what makes him such a massive threat. At the start of this video, I mentioned that Supergirl is fighting against something she is not prepared for, the will of the people, and Lockwood has sufficiently warped the people's view into seeing aliens as a threat and to eliminate them. Supergirl and the other heroes cannot fight back against Lockwood directly, otherwise it will be an alien assaulting a human. The only way to fight back against him is to show people that off-world life are only wanting to escape war and poverty, and mean no harm to the human race. It's an entirely new battlefield with morals and opinions, and in order to win the fight they have to show the people of Earth that they are more than their powers. They need to show that at the end of the day, they are people. Supergirl's attempts to shine light onto social and political topics have been a rollercoaster over the years. Alex discovering her sexual identity was handled incredibly well. On the other hand, the show's many attempts to address racism and prejudice has never been very well thought out until very recently. It took years of trial and error, but the show has finally found a way to truly become an entertaining allegory for the hardships refugees and asylum seekers face. That is why this season of Supergirl is such a standout. It isn't heavy-handed in any of its ideas or commentaries. It is putting the fact that this is a comic book story first, and using that as a way to get their message across. It took 4 years, but they have finally found the balance they've been looking for. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, then please subscribe to White Sunsets, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye everyone.